In this video, I'm going to look at a game I played a couple of Tuesdays ago in the McArthur Cup final for Horsham against Lewes. The match was played at Lewes. I was on board 3. I had the white pieces and was up against Calum Kinloch. The game started with a standard line of the French defence. E4, E6, D4, D5, Knight C3, Knight F6, E5, the Steinitz variation, Knight on F to D7, F4, A6, a slightly unusual move order, although we transpose back to normal lines soon enough as Black plays C5 followed by Knight C6 on the next couple of moves. Knight F3, C5, Bishop E3, Knight C6. Now in this position, Queen D2 is White's main continuation, but I tried something else, the move A3. Now this is a move that I've tried before. The idea is to anticipate Black playing B5, which is one of the reasons for playing A6. The point is that, as we shall see in the game, after B5, White can actually get away with playing the bishop to D3. So here Black played B5, but this is a little cooperative. He should try something else like taking on D4. And now White plays Bishop D3. Black responds Queen B6, building up pressure on D4, and it seems that White has to play D takes C5 when Black will actually stand rather well. However, White just plays castles, and now if Black were to play C takes D4, White will play Bishop F2, and this is the point. Black's D4 pawn is pinned to his queen. White now wants to move his knight from C3 to E2 with the idea of establishing a piece on D4. If this happens, he has a very nice advantage. So rather than playing C takes D4, Black decided to develop with Bishop E7. White played Bishop F2. This is a useful prophylactic move. Now White will never have to worry about C takes D4. And here Black decided to try closing the position up somewhat with C4. Now at least the bishop on D3 after Bishop E2 is not going to be on the dangerous B1 H7 diagonal, which allows Black to now castle, which looks a bit risky, but White is not immediately placed to launch a decisive attack, although he is now able to build up pressure with H4. Black decided to generate key counterplay on the queen side with A5. White continued to push on the king side with H5. Black played Rook B8, planning B4. White now played F5. This is possible because of White's pressure on D5. So for instance, E takes F5 is not possible because of Knight takes D5. Instead of E takes F5, Black continued with his plan by playing B4. And after A takes B4, A takes B4, White played Knight A4, hitting the queen, and Black had to decide where to put it. He decided to play Queen D8. Now, white has various ways to continue in this position. One approach would be to play b3, putting pressure on black's c4 pawn. Black's best response is probably to play c3, although this does concede the d3 square to white's bishop. Now, having resolved things on the queen side, white can turn his attention to the king side with g4, supporting the pawn on f5, and preparing to push h6, which will be rather awkward for black to meet. In the game, instead of b3, white played the immediate h6, which is more immediately aggressive, but allows black to complicate things somewhat. Now, g takes h6 would not be a good idea because of f6 winning a piece. So instead of g takes h6, black played e takes f5. This shows why white played g4 in the aforementioned variation. The point is that as the white knight is no longer on c3, knight takes d5 isn't possible in response. However, white does have h takes g7, considerably weakening black's king side. And after king takes g7, he decided to play b3 to resolve things on the queen side. Now, as in the previous variation, c3 is probably black's best response, keeping lines closed as far as possible on the queen side, although then bishop d3 would give white a solid advantage. In the game, however, rather than c3, black played c takes b3, but after c takes b3, not only does white have the d3 square for his bishop, he also has the open c file, which will cause black some difficulties. Black now played knight b6, hoping to exchange knights, but white declined the exchange with knight b2, as his knight has a lot more potential than black's. It may be possible to bring this knight to the f4 square via d3, for instance, whereas the knight on b6 is clearly not going anywhere. Black played rook g8, and after queen d2, king h8, possibly hoping for some play down the g file, although this is rather optimistic on his part. White played bishop d3, bringing it to its strongest diagonal. And now, although black is a pawn up, that's about the only good thing you can say about his position. His pawn structure is weak, and white has the possibility of attacking on both flanks. Now, black again tried to ease his position with exchanges by playing bishop g5. Now, white could have played the straightforward knight takes g5, and if queen takes g5, then actually he could just go into an endgame with queen takes g5, rook takes g5, bishop e2, intending to bring the knight across from b2 to f4 via d3. And despite the fact that black has an extra pawn, white's bishop pair, superior pawn structure, and control of the A file, plus there's the possibility of trying to penetrate via the C file. All of these things mean that white has an overwhelming advantage in the endgame. Although this feels a slightly unnatural continuation for a human. When you're a pawn down, you don't normally want to swap queens, but here it would have been rather strong. Now, note that instead of queen takes g5, white could have kept queens on with bishop e3, and after queen h4 played rook f4. And this would also have been very strong for him. Also note that instead of queen takes g5, black could have played rook takes g5. And then after bishop h4, played rook takes g2 check. Note that knight takes d4 just fails to bishop takes d5. After rook takes g2 check, king takes g2, queen takes h4, queen f4. Black has to exchange queens. Queen takes f4, rook takes f4, knight e7, knight d1, intending knight e3, when white again has a decisive advantage. So knight takes g5 was definitely possible, but white decided to play queen c2 instead, with a double attack on c6 and f5, and also keeping the possibility of playing knight takes g5 in reserve. Now, bishop d7, protecting the pawn on c6, would have just been met by bishop takes f5. So instead of bishop d7, black played knight e7. But now white just captured on g5. Knight takes g5, rook takes g5, and played bishop h4. After rook g6, white had a choice whether to throw in the check on f6 or play rook a7 directly. Rook a7 would have been very good, but bishop f6 check, king g8, rook a7 was also very good for white. Black now met the threat of taking on e7 with bishop d7, blocking the rook, and also preparing to bring the knight on b6 to c8. White played queen c5, increasing the pressure on e7. Black played knight on b to c8, defending the knight on e7 and also attacking the rook on a7. This turned out to be the crucial moment of the whole game. My first reaction in this position was to play rook c7, which would have been very strong for white. White maintains his grip on the position, and black's position is objectively hopeless. However, I was then seduced by a tempting but flawed idea to play instead queen c7. Now, this seemed to me to force the exchange of queens, because both the rook on b8 and queen on d8 are now undefended. And after queen takes c7, rook takes c7, black's pieces would be in a horrible pickle. Unfortunately, I failed to take into account that after black's response, knight takes a7, both the rook on b8 and queen on d8 are now defended, and white has just lost the exchange. After queen takes a7, black had the neat tactical blow knight c6, extracting himself from the awkward pin, and as bishop takes d8 would simply be met by knight takes a7, when black is just winning, white had to move the queen. He played queen a1, but then after queen b6, it was clear that the d4 pawn was going to fall, and his position now soon fell about completely. White could have resigned here, but because this was a team match and the result of this game was potentially crucial to the overall result, he ploughed on more in hope than expectation. Play went rook f4, knight takes d4, king h2, getting out of the discovered check, but allowing rook h6 check, king g3, knight e6, threatening both knight takes f4 and queen e3 check. So white played rook f3, preventing both moves but allowing f4 check. Now king g4 would walk into the nasty discover check knight d4, which would have been winning. So white played rook takes f4, but now the game ended very quickly. Knight takes f4, king takes f4, queen f2 check, king g5, queen h4 mate. This was a very disappointing game for me, as I'd played very well up to a certain point, only to throw things away with a single move. From the perspective of the match, it looked at one point as if I might have blown Horsham's chances, as following the conclusion of this game, on the bottom four boards, Horsham had 1 win, 1 draw and 2 defeats. But fortunately, we went on to win on the top 2 boards to give us a narrow victory in the tie. And this allowed us to win the McArthur Cup once more.